practice today. Got Brunskill, hamstring will not practice. Armstead, foot, won't practice. Ty Davis Price, ankle, same thing. Croft, knee. Same thing. Trent Williams, just resting, day off. George Kittle, groin, will be limited. Go ahead.
Did Arik hurt the foot in the game?
Yeah, it was bothering him.
Is something that's a concern for this week or just a rest situation for him?
I think he'll be all right.
You guys put Trey Lance on IR officially today, so can you just clarify whether you're expecting him back possibly for the playoffs, or you ruled him out until next season?
No, he'll be out till next year.
Until next season.
Yeah, next season. Thank you. That's what years mean to me. I don't.
Visit with him, and how's his experience?
He's doing as good as you can. Trey's been great. A number of guys, we've all talked to him a bunch, and he's trying to come to the game this week. I don't think he'll be able to until the swelling goes down and stuff like that, but he'll be back in part of us sooner than later.
You went to the quarterback store this week. Why Ben Hurt? What caught your eye with him?
He just had a good workout. Also, you only can have 6 veterans on your roster. So just thinking how to, on your practice squads, so thinking how to balance that out. And we liked what we saw.
He obviously is familiar with the offense. Was that a benefit for you?
Somewhat, but it's not that familiar. It's still different stuff and different words. And, I think maybe some familiarity with the style, but it's not as familiar as you think, as you would think.
Last year when the going got tough, you guys really relied on Debo offensively to move the ball. Are we at that point yet with now Jimmy being back at quarterback and more involvement with Debo in the offense, or is it going to try to be more of the same from what we saw in the first 2 weeks?
I think Debo's been involved a ton in the first 2 weeks. I don't know how many carries or passes it's been, but he's been involved a lot. We don't see the way it ended last year. We don't see that quite soon, but you never know. Got to always balance it out and see how to best attack the defense to win on Sunday.
He added some elusiveness to his game. I'm talking about that 51-yarder. It seemed that, we know him as a physical runner. He's got that explosion, but it seems some of those cuts were really bouncing.
Yeah, he did make some good moves. There was 3 guys there, seemed unblocked in the backfield. It seemed like it was going to be a big loss, and somehow he got through there. It was almost like a punt return, and then he hit it. So I think he's always been a pretty good runner, but that was a real impressive one.
You guys spent all training camp putting in a lot of new stuff for Trey and his skill sets. How much of that, obviously you're not going to give it away, but how much of that do you keep, or do you just go straight back to last year's playbook?
We put all the same stuff in last year too, so it's not as big of a difference as people think. You're running really the exact same runs. Just, do you want to get in pistol and read someone, or do you want to hand it off and not read them? So it doesn't change it as much as people think.
How was Jimmy approached this week now that he's back in the starter's role? Has he done anything noticeably different, whether it's coming in earlier, staying later, watching more film, going over data?
No, he was the same as he's been the last 2 weeks, and same as he's been since he's been here. So he just got back into getting all the reps. We've done walkthroughs so far, so that's really the only thing that's changed.
It seems like Aaron Banks has been pretty impressive. How much growth have you seen from him from when he came into the building?
I've been real happy with him in these first 2 weeks. I think he took a step up in week 1 from the preseason. And I think he even took a greater step up in week 2 compared to week 1. So I thought he had one of our better games on offense and did a hell of a job.
He's obviously familiar with a lot of his pass catchers, but there's some new guys. Danny Gray, I would imagine, is hard to adjust to right away. Does he have to spend extra time with the McLeods, the Grays this week?
Not as much as you would think. I do think that stuff's a little overrated. If they're open, he's usually going to hit them. Those guys, when people come, people got to get used to things because people don't always run routes the way that we have all of our guys do it. So sometimes that takes time. But you mainly train the guys in the offense, and then they get very similar. And Jimmy's been used to all the other wideouts, and those guys are fitting in just fine.
This has pretty well been discussed, but the dynamic of Jimmy, all the speculation last year, what he went through camp, and then to go out there when called on and do it with a smile on his face. There's not that many professional athletes that would be willing to do that kind of thing. What is it about him that makes him maybe?
Really, that he's just like that in every situation since we've met him. That's how Jimmy is, and he tries to simplify things and not get caught up in all that stuff, and just tries to communicate with us. We communicate with him, and I think that's why our guys love him, and that's why we all do. So it's, he's been that way since the beginning.
You said the other day that when Trey got injured, obviously it was very upsetting, but you had to go coach the game. Were you able to take some time to process it all, just kind of what that meant for the season, what it means for you, or just go, go, go?
Oh yeah, no, that's why it's really depressing after a game when you come in there with the mixed emotions. You got to go into a training room and talk to someone who's heartbroken along with yourself. You got to talk to everyone on the team about it. Then you got to come in here and answer questions. I mean, all that stuff's extremely emotional, and we really hurt for people who have to go through that.
Kyle, how different is it to face a quarterback that you know so well like Russell Wilson, but in a new system, new coach, new team?
I mean, they've had 2 games, so. But, I mean, he still looks like Russ, you know, that he can make a lot of plays at any time. You know, they had a lot of opportunities, and they just came up short. The times they did score were always with big plays that Russ made. He made a go route that got him to the 2-yard line, a PI that got him to the 2. They made a big go on 3rd down. He made the fade tight end to the fade throw to the tight end from like the 22-yard line. I mean, Russ makes plays, and you can't fall asleep on him, no matter how much you hold them down or you hold their offense down, whether it's Seattle or whether it's Denver. Russ can change that game at any time.
Nathaniel Hackett worked for the Bucs, and I think he might have took the job that you left with Tampa Bay on John Gruden's staff. And I believe you worked with his dad for a year, but you've never worked with Nate. How well do you know him?
I've always been a big fan of Nate, starting with his dad. Paul Hackett was my 2nd year in Tampa Bay. He was the quarterback coach and really one of the most influential guys I had there. He was unbelievable to me and taught me so much stuff. And when I left, Nate came in, I believe. I think it was Nate. I think Sean was after Nate. But yes, I've always kept in touch with him, known him through his dad, but never worked together. He was the guy that we were possibly going to bring here when Mike was thinking about going with his brother. So we've gotten close a couple of times, but got a lot of respect for him and been around a lot of similar coaches.
The fact that he's a football coach's son, you're a football coach's son, he's taken all kinds of flack this week for some of the things that happened the first couple of games. You've had outside noise coming in regarding the quarterback running thing. As coaches' sons, are you guys better equipped to deal with stuff like that? I mean, have you seen that from going on with your dads years ago?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, my biggest worries growing up when there was a tough Sunday was how are those 2 articles going to be on Monday morning, and how much crap am I going to get from everyone at school. I can't believe that used to be big back then, because there's no such thing as just 2 articles on Monday morning. It's updates every second and stuff. So, like, I think it is different. But you do get a little hard into that stuff. But, I mean, everyone's still humans. It's not easy. It's hard on your wives and things like that, people that are out in the world. You can't just kind of bury in and focus on your team. But we all know that comes with the business, and especially watching our dads go through it. And no matter how good things are, you're always going to go through tough times. And that's stuff you get trained at going through as a coordinator. I got that for a lot of years going as a coordinator, and I think it helped prepare me as a head coach, and I think Nate's going through the same stuff like we all do.
Coach, we were told you were talking to Steve Kerr just before this. Is he in the building, or what's the nature of that? What's the nature of your relationship with Steve? How often do you get to talk to him?
Not much. I just got to meet him this summer. We have some close mutual friends and stuff, but no, he was in the area and asked if he could stop by, and wish he came at a more exciting time, you know, like a practice or a team meeting. He was only here during a walkthrough, but it was cool that he got to get out there and just catch up with him for a little bit.
Johnny Holland's known as, like, this style's very encouraging and positive. You've known him for a long time. Has you ever recall occasions where he's kind of snapped, lost his cool, or yelled?
Yeah, but it's all in a different, you got to change your standard of what snapping is when it's Johnny. You can tell when he's bothered by something, but that it's not going to be like me snapping on something or something else. Like most people, Johnny is very even keel. It's hard to get him out of that, and he's been that way ever since I met him in Houston almost 20 years ago. All right, guys. Thanks.